Hi, Bowhead community. We're back and continuing to dive deep into consumer protection conversations around the future of digital health. In this interview, I sit down with Priyanka Pareek, Vice President of Business Transformation at Winjit. Priyanka is an advocate of blockchain, digital transformation, user experience, and women's leadership. Hi, Priyanka. It's so nice to see you.
Likewise, Ria. Always a pleasure talking to you.
So we met in Nashik, India. So you're our, I think our second international interviewee. So I'm very excited to learn about your background and about this topic, which is blockchain and blockchain specifically in India. So really excited to chat with you. Let's start with your story.
I grew up as an enthusiastic tech kid. I was always curious, self-taught programmer. That's when I decided that I want to get a degree in computer engineering. I was still in grad school when I landed a position at Winjit, and I have been with them for more than 6 years now. In role at Winjit, I head a strategic business transformation unit where we drive digital transformation through blockchain, machine learning, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and design thinking.
Cool, and nice to hear that Winjit also covers design thinking.
A part of the business unit that I lead, these bunch of creative UX designers and UX researcher. So what we also do is we host these design sprint, and just 2 weeks ago, we had this global design hackathon, which had more than 120 participants. And we invited industry leaders who were from banking and did this online voting aspect and got our creative ideas out.
Very cool. Okay, so let's talk about blockchain. If you could kind of define in layman's terms what blockchain technology is, and also if you can distinguish between Bitcoin, which is going up, and blockchain technology. People hear blockchain and they think Bitcoin, or they think Ethereum, cryptocurrency. So yeah, I'd love to hear how you would define it.
But simply put, blockchain is nothing but a database. It's a database with a set of rules which govern it. And now, if we were to go by an analogy, let's say that blockchain was a person who was keeping record. He was keeping record of all our ideas, and he was keeping a record of every idea that emerged in the world. Now, with this specific person, there are 4 challenges. Like the first challenge is, do I really trust this person? Do I trust that my ideas are safe with him? The second is integrity. How can I be sure that tomorrow, if someone comes in and bribes this person, my idea is still safe? Is there integrity with him? The third thing is traceability. Like tomorrow, what if he, for some reason, changes my idea and kind of swaps it with someone else? Is there any traceability or record of that? And the fourth thing is reliability. Like how can I be so sure that the system this person is using is actually reliable for all my data? Now, this is exactly where blockchain comes into the picture and say, hey, here's the deal. Why don't we form our own community? You and I would form in a chain of different blocks and nodes. And our system would hold all this record instead of only my system holding this record. And this could scale in from 3 members to 3 billion people, which is the size of our entire blockchain community today. There is no single point of failure. It's everything that goes into blockchain is immutable, so the data can never be changed. There is traceability because we maintain record of everything that's, even every transaction that is made. And finally, there is a lot of trust because I now have control over my data because there is a private key which I would hold. Now, the second thing, like you rightly mentioned, is this unbreakable bond between Bitcoin and blockchain. These terms kind of go in sync together. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency which was made through the blockchain technology. And it started out by the tech community adapting it because it held, Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency held value in the digital world. So I could buy in a video game out of it, or I could buy a digital asset for my Dungeons and Dragons. Pretty much bought me the same things digitally, which a dollar did. So that's how the popularity grew. And the more number of people started getting hold of Bitcoin, the more the value grew. I feel that it's very true that you point out blockchain actually worked really hard to break this entire myth about it being limited to cryptocurrencies. And it has succeeded to a lot of level, but the shadow still kind of lingers there. That, when you say blockchain, you would also say Bitcoin and Ethereum and human coin and so on. So yeah.
Thank you so much for that definition and for distinguishing between the two. Can we talk about the landscape in India? India was an early adopter in this space, right? And I don't know how things have changed.
India kind of was among the first set of countries who were trying use cases, who were trying to think about what exactly this technology is. Do I need some regulations in place? Now, the interesting part was that there were only two reactions which everyone had. So they were either intrigued by it, that what exactly it is, or they were either threatened by it, because there is so much of a governance piece which comes into play. So there are multiple things which comes into play. Like, is everyone at that level where they know all the tech reliance when you decentralize a certain data? And then there is also a fact of what is in it for the people who participate. So the underlying layer for the popularity of Bitcoin was the fact that miners earned incentive. So when we look at any blockchain use case itself, whether it is for a social cause or whether it is for kind of instilling trust, there has to be some incentive for the people who are a part of it. And that's a piece which I feel, especially in India, is what is being discovered. Now, India has been pretty open about, yeah, we would explore this technology, we would adapt it. But at the same time, like any other country, it had a yes, no, maybe, let's ban blockchain, let's unban it. And so from a regulatory perspective, we are still at a crossroad. In fact, even like as of yesterday, there were conversation about what's going to happen. Is India going to ban cryptocurrency? Would banks be still allowed to trade into it? But what's needed and this is the reaction of the entire tech community, is rather than banning the cryptocurrency entirely, or rather than banning the blockchain technology, the need of the hour is to think of for a sophisticated framework, which could actually help people set up and look at the problems that it could solve.
Okay, very cool. We're talking there mainly at sort of a governance level. What I'm curious now about is what projects you see through your role at Winjit. I'm sure you see all kinds of projects, and I'm also curious, are your clients mainly coming from India or are they coming from all over the world?
To be honest, our first preliminary set of clients came in mostly from the countries where there were already open regulations. So let's say Eastern Europe, where like Norway or Estonia, but then later on, as other countries adapted, like Canada, US, and even in India, well, that's when our client base spread out. To be honest, with the entire blockchain use case, one commonality between all these different set of people that we worked with was the fact that they were not thinking about the use case, which was limited to the country they were registered in. Since the beginning itself, all these different entrepreneurs and these industry leaders thought of scale. Another pattern is that irrespective of the country that they represented, their product idea was something which could be adapted across different regions. So more than the fact about they working in the blockchain space, it was also about how strong their business use case was, because it solved a, it had a huge market gap which it was filling in, and they had a solid plan to scale it up and think on the larger picture.
Okay, and so I would love to know, how do you think through a blockchain related project, and also what percentage of the projects that come in to Winjit are blockchain based?
One factor and one common approach is that we would start by questioning anyone who comes to us with this use case, that I want to build a project on blockchain. We would start by asking the whys. Why does it need to be on blockchain? What problem is blockchain helping you solve? Because back, I think 4 years ago, everyone wanted to have a project which was on blockchain. The second aspect is making these data decisions, because like I said, that there are a transaction, if it goes to blockchain, stays that forever. So when we think of a certain project, how much data does blockchain actually need to store, or how much data could actually be stored in a regular server? So a GDPR regulation will tell you that the data of my citizens should stay in Europe, but blockchain, you don't really know what server it is on. So when you're looking at these use cases or when you're looking at these projects, and again, data decisions on every field level is the most important call for us to take. So yeah, those are the common approaches.
Okay. Have you come across any healthcare use cases?
We've come across a bunch of interesting healthcare use cases, and I particularly enjoyed talking about Bowhead as well, because you remember, like, when we were talking and you said that, oh, this is a project which helps in the migraine data. I was like, no ways, I have migraine. So many useful use cases, especially in blockchain. My personal favorite has been the one which dealt around clinical research. So this was one use case where the entrepreneur that we were working with, and he's a reputed industry leader, because he was a part of the clinical research space for like 20 years, and he had such rich domain expertise. So he had lived through the entire problem space, understanding that there are so many permutations from the sponsor of the research to the company who's conducting the research, volunteers, and then there is pharmaceutical companies involved. And at the end, you also have to maintain these research. And as we speak about this, it's so relevant in today's context, where the entire world is in one direction to focus on clinical research for a certain vaccine. When a vaccine does get released, or when a medicine is discovered, and for some reason, if there is anything which goes off, you could always have a complete pipeline or chain of events that you can trace back to.
We're actually involved with in the research area too. We have a migraine survey, which is now implemented in over 10 countries, which is really exciting. And that was actually quite a big challenge, because we have to get country managers, and we have to, replicate the app in all these multiple languages. So it was a nice challenge, but we also have a COVID survey. So we realized that there's a big opportunity. What an opportunity to be able to interview people who are survivors, who have gone through the experience, and survey them, and be able to hold that data private, and let them have the control of that data. What do you think are some of the opportunities in India now, from a digital health perspective, in this COVID era?
Speaking of the current situation, there is a lot of innovation which came in from the startup community. So, and it was at a pace where within every week there were India first solutions which were designed or which were thought through, unique ideas all about addressing the problems which were unique to a lot of tier 2 cities or some smaller towns. So for example, if anyone needed to find out the availability of beds in a hospital, they would have a quick app which could do that. And all of that came in from independent community. So India is not just the couple of metro cities it's not just Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore. It's also the city or a small town somewhere in the Himalayas, because that's all inclusive, right? So the first and foremost objective of the country itself would be about achieving universal healthcare, and digital health record plays such an important role to do that, because that ways you could cover all the different players or stakeholders involved in this process. It would be about like localization. You said that we have 22 regional languages, and it could then transfer into so many other languages. So I think that's the first prioritization. The second thing is, again, like if we look at the post-COVID situation, it's going to be more about making sure how do you have that contact traceability in place. So how do you know that, because we don't have that surveillance system because it was never needed. And again, bringing in the unique challenge of our scale, you have like so many people to kind of track in, and does all of that data really needs to go in? Do people have their consent on it? And
India is such a big country.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's a really exciting challenge. And even just during this time, I'm sure that, there's so many differences in terms of how patients are served. And then of course how data is being tracked and stored and managed. So yeah, I think it's a really exciting challenge, and I hope that Bowhead can somehow play a role in in brainstorming and helping to democratize healthcare in India, I think. And so with that, I would love to talk to you about you're obviously a powerful, successful, bright woman, and you're in tech. And I'm really curious to learn a little bit about women in tech in India, or women in STEM, looking at North America. And this probably actually extends to other parts of the world as well. There are, very few women in blockchain specifically, and also in tech more broadly. I think the last time I checked, there's about 2% women in blockchain. That number might have shifted, now with a lot more conversation about equity and gender equity. And but I'm curious to know from your end, what's the situation like in India? Are women given the same opportunities, say in high school, to pursue opportunities in tech, or to go and pursue studies in tech, in fintech, in blockchain tech?
I would start by setting in the base that India is actually way ahead when it comes to women workforce in technology. We have a 35% ratio, and which is again way higher than when you look at US or Canada or Australia. So that's pretty important. The second thing is, when we look at an education sector, we are close to a 50-50 ratio with women and men in tech. And that's actually a number where, which comes in from the fact that we have a lot of programs supporting women education. And it's also cultural. The family is very supportive to make sure that, okay, if our girls are studying, they should study science. So no matter what your gender, what your race, or what your background is, you want to look at people who look like you. That scenario that we had 20 years ago is now changing in a way that one of India's largest IT company shares a women leader. So I think it's at a revenue of $30 billion. And just as of last week, she was the chairperson of this IT company. The second important thing around this entire women in tech situation is that there is a dire need of mentors. So what we lack in here is that our networking when it comes to professional space is limited to the metropolitan cities where it would be led at scale. It's about making sure that the culture that you're building in your company promotes that kind of environment where a woman is given equal opportunities. I feel I've been personally blessed with that kind of mentorship or that kind of opportunities. So I think we need more mentors compared to bosses, because that's the way we could go about it. So,
yeah. Women are natural leaders. Well, I'm happy you shared that. I'm also celebrating Winjit for celebrating the fact that women are natural leaders, bringing brilliant women into the company. And like you said, you're right. We need these policies in place. And so from a mentorship perspective, I think you're right. We need more mentors. We need more female mentors, and we need more male mentors who are allies and who we trust to support women in moving up the ladder. That's something I think about a lot in terms of my influence and how can I support women all over the world, and as well as in India, in kind of moving into tech, into STEM, and talking about the culture. It might have started in India, but it definitely expanded through the diaspora. So I also was raised to believe that that I could achieve anything, and that education was available to me, and to that I could really just do anything. So if we can share that wisdom with all women around the world, especially the ones who are in rural communities and marginalized communities, I think we'll end up in maybe the next generation with more equality. So for the final question, I'd love to just ask you, if you kind of zoom out, maybe whatever it is, 1, 3, 5, 10 years in India, what is sort of the India that you see, given some of the topics that we chatted about? So so if you were to kind of dream for a moment, and from a healthcare perspective as well, what do you see?
And a lot of credit goes to the banking, financial services, and insurance sector within the country. So even when it came to emerging technology, whether it was neobanking or blockchain, the BFSI community in India was actually at the forefront of adapting it and making it a mainstream use case. So 10 years down the line, I feel that the BFSI segment would definitely be at a pace where everything is digitized. When it comes to healthcare, I would like to see that we are certainly at our mission for the universal healthcare achieved, that it's accessible to all, it's available to all, and there is a sophisticated medium to track all the data which is generated day in and day out, because it's not limited just from an India perspective. When you have digital health record, so it doesn't really mean that the medical record or the data generated in India is just for that specific country. It's something which could be a playground for research going across the world, because you have such a diverse set of data around it. That's again in terms of health. From again, like women in tech perspective, I definitely rooting for, and I'm confident to see more women leaders, because again, the numbers are already increasing. The way we would attend events today, there would be like a almost balanced number of women who are actually participating, and you don't really see it as a space where there are like groups of people and you would not find the way we had the blockchain voice club. The last and final thing that I hope for is to have that collaborative platform and communities where these common goals could be supported, more of like a mastermind club. So I, again, like for the kind of things which you are passionate about, or the kind of things that someone else is passionate about. So these kind of communities and access to these resources would exist.
I love that you added in the community and the collaboration, because I think cross industry collaboration is really important. We need to all be speaking and just exchanging ideas. So I'm going to hold that vision with you. I think it's a really powerful vision. I'm excited to follow you into the future and see you, as an executive, mentoring women and just creating change in anything that you do. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in and learning with us. Wow, Priyanka is an inspiring tech leader and blockchain evangelist, and we're grateful to tap into her wisdom on the topic of blockchain, given it's still a nascent field in the industry. We are doing this deep dive series because we think it's really important to educate our community on the future of consumer protection and digital health. If you like what you see, please follow along our journey. Thank you.